Hello and welcome to the KNOWN CMO Roundtable discussion powered by Vagaro. My name is Charity Hudnall and I'm the CMO at Vagaro. Just a quick couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Please use the chat feature to make comments, share your thoughts, share emojis. We want to hear your perspective throughout the session as well. Also, you'll see some polls pop up throughout the session. Please participate in the polls. It will give you and the attendees some general perspective and a chance to see others' point of view. So today's topic is I'm looking for a girl in finance. Such a hot topic right now, especially with our economy the way it is. And I'm so excited to welcome our two powerhouse guests. I would like to first welcome Victoria Racca. Victoria is a leading beauty business educator and coach who owns the Microblading Institute franchise, founded by Brow Sister Permanent Makeup Products. She also hosts the Glam Life Permanent Makeup Podcast, and passionately advocates for women opportunities in the beauty industry. Welcome, Victoria.
Hi, it's nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you and can't wait to get started. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next guest, who is Manukyan, is the head of education and creative at Ulta Beauty and founder of the Beauty Finance Group. She's an accomplished beauty executive, educator, and founder dedicated to equipping salon professionals with the financial tools they need to secure a future. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here with Victoria, and I'm so thrilled to be having this conversation with you, Charity.
Awesome. Well, actually, it's my first time meeting you both, and I just can't wait to get and dig into this, but I would love to give our attendees a little bit of a view into your journey. So if you wouldn't mind, maybe Victoria, you can start maybe telling us like how you got to where you are today. What was your journey like?
Sure. So I have always been an entrepreneur. I mean, I can remember being in first grade and nailing literal nails, like roofing nails, into a piece of plywood and trying to get my teacher to buy it and saying it was a coat rack. So I have wanted to run a business my whole life. Even when I was in college, I was an exotic dancer. So I was the only person who ran it like a business. I kept receipts. I had deductions. I got to write off my nails, my hair, my costumes, my makeup. I mean, Mac hates to see me coming. So I have always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And when I decided to become a mom, once my husband and I decided that was next on the plate for us, I actually suffered a miscarriage my first pregnancy, and I was working in a nonprofit at the time, and it was just very obvious to me that it was not going to work out. Like working on someone else's timetable and being a mom was not going to work out, because I was literally in the middle of having a miscarriage and my staff was calling me saying, "Where's the code for this? What's the password for that? Who's in charge of this? Where's the key?" And I was like, "Guys, I'm dying right now. You call someone else." And still they called. So I immediately put in an application at my local Aveda, went back to school and got my aesthetics license. And I thought I would work in that field, but I pretty quickly got into permanent makeup. I opened up the Microblading Institute, and then I became a trade school under the state of Louisiana's Board of Regents. And then I started coaching. So I was coaching people not just in permanent makeup, but also in their beauty businesses. And a lot of people wanted to become educators, but they didn't know the first thing about creating an actual educational program. Mine passed the Board of Regents. I mean, I'm like a Paul Mitchell or an Aveda. So I started franchising, basically renting out my curriculum to people who fit certain qualifications. And then, as an entrepreneur always does, something else happened. And I thought to myself, how can I bring down the cost of our student kids? I'll start creating a lot of the products that we use. So that's how I got into manufacturing. And I was working with a formulator, and we came up with our own numbing gel and numbing cream, and they have just absolutely taken off. They've become the full focus of my business. That's my second business, Brow Sister PMU Products. And I was voted, I'll toot my horn a little, I was voted best new product in London last year.
Yes.
And thank you. I was sold out for 6 months this year. Couldn't get a tube. Not even me. I couldn't even get a tube. We are now Amazon approved, though I don't know how that's going to work out, because I like to be in control, as entrepreneurs are. And I'm having a tough time delegating the pick and pack process, because I like to handwrite people notes and put in extras and stuff. I don't want anyone else shipping my stuff. That is where I currently am. Maybe one day I will sell that to a hedge fund somewhere. Here, buy my company. But as of today, that's where I stand.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing journey. I love that. And you just summed it up with telling your story. What a lot of business owners go through. It's the balance of really trying to figure out how to not be a micromanager and be involved in everything, but then also, right, you have a life too, and things that you need to do. So how do you empower those around you to help you and support you in the right way? And it is definitely a tough balance. So amazing story. Thank you, Victoria. Anna, what about you? Tell us about your journey.
Thank you. That is a hard act to follow. I'm so inspired, Victoria. I want to hear more about a few parts of that story, but congratulations. It's incredible. My story is a bit interesting in its own way. I came to the United States with my parents as we actually came as political refugees when I was 9 years old. And, very early on in my life, I started working when I was 12, and very early on in my life, I learned the importance of hard work. I learned how to hustle, how to say yes, how to get done what I needed to get done. But like so many people in the beauty industry or in the service industry, I was taught work ethic, but I wasn't necessarily taught what to do with money when you made it. And so, because I started my career in the beauty industry very, very early, I started working for L'Oreal actually when I was 19 years old. I couldn't rent a car. I couldn't check into a Las Vegas hotel room by myself. I used to argue with hotel managers about reverse age discrimination because I had to have a roommate. So, needless to say, it's been a long time. And I spent, the majority of my career with, either working with salon professionals, working on business development, working with some of the largest, artists in our industry. And one of the things that I saw time and time again was the fact that there's so much education, there's so much information around how to make sure that the client is happy, how to make sure that your skills are savvy. And, about 20 years about 18 years actually into my professional journey, I started getting really tired of seeing people that I really cared about, salons that were really successful, service providers who literally spend their lives taking care of their guests, wind up with a GoFundMe at the end of a career because they didn't have the information necessary to make sure that their income was protected. They didn't have the information necessary to save for retirement, to plant the seeds that they were making along the way so that it can grow into something for them. And, when I started really looking for financial experts to be able to come to talk to our industry, what I found time and time again, even myself as being, an accomplished executive, so to speak, is I always felt they're feeling defeated. I always felt that left that conversation feeling less than. I always felt that left that conversation feeling really inadequate, quite honestly, and feeling a lot of shame of how come I didn't know this before? And, I think about the fact that if I'm feeling this way as quote unquote, somebody who has a professional, status in this industry, how does a single mother in, the middle of the United States with less resources than I do, how does she feel going and having those conversations? And so I really started to want to create the change that I wanted to see. And so I went and got my financial accreditations. I became a certified financial educator, to essentially be able to be that voice of translation. Because what we do from an empathetic standpoint, from a human connection standpoint, from a guest service standpoint, from a, my goodness, from a, even if we think about the hair industry, from like a color correction standpoint, if you can understand that, you can navigate finance. But we're taught in this industry to feel like we're less than and we're not deserving of some of that information or that level of understanding. And, my work, my life's work, even now with my role within, leading education and creative for Ulta Beauty, or just being a presence in the beauty industry or around service and creative industry, to be able to change the conversation. Because the reality is that we spend our lives taking care of other people, and it's really time for us to start taking care of ourselves. We deserve better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So I guess right now the climate is has been fluctuating, right? With the economy the way it is. At Vogaro, we have probably more than 86,000 businesses that use our platform, and we have over 250,000 professionals that use our platform. And so we've seen a lot of businesses that started during the pandemic, and some are doing really well. Some are thriving and able to navigate in this kind of fluctuation of times right now in this climate. And some, some aren't doing so well. And I guess, what is your take right now for business owners in this kind of fluctuating climate? Do you kind of just have some general advice that you'd like to offer, or things that you're seeing?
I think I'll jump in on this, but I just did a talk on this over the weekend, actually, is, one of the things that we're seeing again is something that we used to see in 2008. And I remember seeing this, and it's the frequency of the returning guest. And so when you think about, the value of that guest, the average ticket, the average service cost, and, what's starting to happen now is those guests are starting to extend their services by just like 2-3 weeks. It's not much. Yeah. We're still seeing them walk in our door. We're still seeing them, we're still seeing them give us business. But what's happening is it's averaging about 2 times less a year, because they're stretching out those visits just enough to make it a little bit more feasible for them. But what happens is when you have, an average service price of, let's just say $200, well, that's $400 less for one guest that you'll get at the end of the year. Multiply that by 10 guests, multiply that by 20 guests. I mean, we're making, $10, $15, $20,000 in some cases less a year. And it's a sneaky decline, because we're still seeing those guests all the time. And so being very prescriptive around what the guest experience is, around what the, the intention for that guest coming in is, whether it's an additional add-on service, whether it's a special that they need to come in for, even like in between visits, is going to be key. Because, the anticipation is that, similar to 2008, because these things are cyclical, is we really have to be intentional over the next 18 months to 2 years in order to really get past this decline. Because again, those guests are still coming in. It's just, we got to get them in more frequent.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I can piggyback on that a little bit, I think that's a great idea at, looking at the guest experience and making sure that things are really tailored to them. I love the word you use, prescriptive. I think also, if they want to, maybe we get out in front of it. If they want to extend the time between visits, we get out in front of it and say, you could actually come every 8 weeks instead of 6 weeks if you had your home care, and now we're upselling and we're selling product and we're making money off retail. And they were going to extend by 8 weeks anyway, but now it'll be less work for us when they come back in, and they feel like we're taking care of them and that we're still within their budget.
Yeah, no, I love that. I was just going to say, while you were both talking, I was thinking about my lash lady. And so she has her pricing set to, if I come within 3 weeks of every visit, I save like $50. And if I come outside of that 3 weeks, obviously it's more work for her. So then it's like $50 more. So it gives me incentive, right? Especially if I'm on a budget, like, hey, I need to go on a regular basis. And mentally I'm thinking, I'm going to save that $50. Which, there's a very hot topic going on right now, especially like you see it a lot on TikTok and Instagram, about knowing your worth and being able to charge your worth. And so there's a lot of business owners that are hesitant to really do that and raise their prices. What are your thoughts on that in raising your prices and where to start? And like, if you should, like, where should a business owner get started with that?
Raise them. If you feel like you need to raise them, raise them. Everybody else gets raises every year. You have gotten paid decreases every year for the last few years. And the number one thing that students will say to me when I tell them to raise their prices is, well, I'm going to lose some of my clients. Lose them. You can have 10 clients who pay $1 and make $10, or you could have one client who pays $10 and make $10, but you only have to go into work that one time. So financially, when you're looking at the numbers on paper, it just makes sense. But I would like to add on something that's a little less popular to say, that cheaper prices bring cheaper clients. So if you want to work less, charge more.
I agree. I fully agree. And, to tag on to that, this is, when we look at the service industry within beauty specifically, we're actually one of the few industries where the longer you're in it, the less money you make. Because when we think about what tends to happen, if we look at the kind of the service curve of, just imagine like a hill, right? And if we think of the first 5 to 7 years of a professional, really, of a service professional, really like, eye on the prize, I'm going to build my business, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to say yes, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to that, the goal where I want to get to. And then we're tired. We are exhausted, worked ourselves to the bone, right? And we start to plateau. And then it's a very slow and steady decline into the last 10 to 15 years of our career. And the thing is that, the three things that we fail to do as a service industry, whether it's on the beauty side of things, or whether it's on the creative side of things, is we don't typically account for three key factors that really tend to drive the decline of how profitable we are. The first one is inflation. Right. So we heard about it last year because it was at a 30-year high. But, to Victoria's point, like, you're losing money every year unless you are adjusting your prices. And so the reality is that on a good year, I mean, last year, again, it was a 30-year high. We saw inflation numbers, between 9 and 10%. But on a regular smooth economy year, inflation is 3 to 5%. And so my dollar today is going to be 5 cents less next year, right? So what I'm able to purchase with it. And we know the business costs continue to increase. So inflation is such a key driver of, to raise your prices in a way that you're just keeping up with what your profitability is. I'm not even talking about making more money. The second part of that, right, which drives directly into the fear of losing numbers, is once we kind of get to that booked and busy place where we start to plateau, we start to burn out, is a lack of advertising for new clients, and then client attrition starts to happen. Because to your point, Victoria, you can take 10 $1 clients, or you can elevate your prices and make room for those $5 clients to come in. Because when you're so busy servicing everyone and you're not intentional and prescriptive in who it is that you want to be the expert for, you actually start to lose the opportunity to get clients that are willing to pay those prices. And then the third, right, is our own physical decline. And so when we are consistently working that hard, our personal tools start to fail. And that'll also allows us to prevent us from taking new clients, from hustling as much as we are, or from working smarter, not harder, because then we're just in that decline stage. And so I think, be intentional with raising your prices. I also think the, showcasing the expertise that you have to attract the guests that it is that you want to walk into your doors is essential. And so when we think through, personal branding, showcasing what it is that you want to be known for, and essentially, Chanel raises their prices every single year, and it's actually seen as an investment. And so when you think about, the services that people are coming into your doors for, what are they investing in? And how are you continuing to elevate your brand so that the expectation is, actually, that's going to be costing me more next year because I know the deal that I'm getting for the quality that I'm receiving.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to kind of go back to, both of you are alluding to an experience, and experience really, I feel like plays a part in how much you're able to charge, right? And I heard this, I saw this quote. I'm sorry, I don't know who said it, but it was, if you take a bottle of water and you go to like a 7-Eleven or a Wiki Mart or whatever, you might pay like $1 or $2 for that bottle of water. Go to a restaurant, that same bottle of water may cost $3. Go to the airport and it may cost you $4. And then you're on the airplane and you're paying for a bottle of water that's maybe like $7. And it's really about your environment, right? And where you are. And that, I think, encourages your willingness to pay a certain price, and that plays a part in experience. So I guess just what are your thoughts on just an overall total experience? How much should you invest in your experience as well? And how does that play a part maybe into like your recurring customers and getting recurring customers through the door?
I think your experience, your customer experience is everything. If a client likes the work, but they didn't have much fun there or didn't enjoy their time there, or they felt like a fish out of water, they're probably going to try somewhere else where it looks like they're having fun. And vice versa. If they had a great time, but the work looks terrible, they'll probably give you a second chance.
I fully agree. And I think, always one of the things that I, am a very, very true believer in is don't forget to be the guest yourself. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is that when we look at, from a beauty service provider standpoint, one of my favorite questions that I always like to ask is, when was the last time you paid to get your hair done? When was the last time you paid to get your makeup done? When was the last time you paid to get your lashes done? And what was that experience like for you? When you're handing over your hard-earned couple of $100s, are you satisfied with what you're getting in return? Because it's not just about the technical service. And so I think, for all of us that are in the beauty industry or in the service industry, don't forget what it's like to be on the receiving end of that and paying for it. So I think guest experience is absolutely key. There's a lot of, there's not a shortage of services at all at all price levels for any guest to be able to walk into. People will always forget how you made what you say, right? But they will always I'm butchering that saying. People will forget what you say or do, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And when it comes to service specifically, if you have an off day, you cut someone's hair just a little too short, or the toner comes out a little dark, or you maybe miss an eyelash spot. If your guest has a good relationship with you, they're going to forgive that. However, if they don't feel like they're taken care of, if they don't feel like they're seen or that their time is valued, which is huge, then they'll look for somebody else. And guess what? When somebody has a negative experience, they're likely tell a lot more people than when they're happy with their experience. So there's also the downfall of not providing the guest experience and what that means for you for potential business as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Charity, can I scratch your brain real quick?
Oh, please.
So, of course, a lot of this on the front end, before the client ever even walks through the door to have an experience, that experience starts in the marketing. And if you truly know who your ideal client is, if you know who you're talking to, then you know what to say to them. And I have always said that there should be an artist for every client, not a client for every artist, because not everyone deserves the clients that they have, but that's another conversation. So you might walk into my salon, which is very make yourself at home, kick your shoes off. There's Diet Cokes in the fridge. We're listening to Doja Cat, and we're open concept. So we're very gossipy, small town. Tell me the tea. What's going on? Someone who likes a more buttoned up spa environment is not going to feel comfortable there. That's great, because there's another spa across town where they are, like, very Ed Sheeran plays on a loop. You look, I can't do it with the lime water and cucumber water. I can't do it. But there needs to be both places, and those experiences are what they're seeking out. So it starts before they even walk through the door, honestly. And if you just saw my face light up when we're talking about this, it's because it's actually my favorite topic.
No, that's absolutely true. From your website to how they're booking an appointment to whoever's referring them to your business, to the experience when they walk through the door. And a lot of times, we encourage our business owners to, customize your messaging, and send them a message beforehand saying, hey, I'm ready. Here's a form. We want to customize your experience. Like, there are just so many little things you can do. Yes, Victoria, to show them what type of business you are, to show them your niche, to show them your expertise, to show them what they're walking into. I know, like, I have a little thing about spas. Like, I look for a spa that, in the photos of the spa on their website, that they have white sheets. Like, I always love to go to a spa because it just makes me feel like it's very clean. And that's just a thing of mine. And that's something that I look for. So absolutely, it starts before the client even walks through the door. So I absolutely agree. I want to move. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to just agree with you. If they're not white sheets, they're not bleaching them. So
I do want to move to the daunting subject of budgeting, and budgeting not only just as a business owner, but also just as a professional. You know, we have a lot of makeup artists or stylists, salon stylists, that are still living paycheck to paycheck, and they're trying to figure out, how do I get ahead? How do I plan for my future? How do I put together a budget? And then as a business owner, you're trying to figure out, okay, I have to invest in my experience, right? I have to invest in the business management part of it. And then I have all these expenses and everything that's going out the door. What are your suggestions on budgeting, or what's your methodology? What's your advice? What are your thoughts?
I think, be very crystal clear with what your non-negotiable fixed expenses are, or like your needs, whether it's your business account or whether it's your business budget or your personal budget. Is know exactly what you need at the end of the week, at the end of the month, ultimately for the year, right? What tends to happen is, while yes, inflation is high, everything costs us more money. Our income tends to fluctuate, depending on the time of the year that we're in. The reality is that when it comes to like financial psychology, so to speak, it's not necessarily even how much you make, it's what you're able to keep of what you make. Because when you think about the kind of the stigma of how many lotto winners wind up broke within 10 years, right? It's not necessarily not having money. It's what is it that I do with the money that I have coming in? And one of the things that is such a good exercise, and I recommend this, and I do this periodically, and even when I do it, I'm like, oh my God, I still fall into this trap, right? Is take a look at all of your expenses. And you guys, this is, if you do nothing else, like it's such a good challenge of take a look at your bank statement from the month, and or anything that's leaving, whether it's your Venmo account, whether it's your bank statement, whatever it is, and start to just identify your expenses as what's a need, like what did I need to spend money on? So fixed expenses, your car payment, your gas, your, the things that you need to function in society and to live. That's a need. What's a want? Like what did I spend money on that was a want, and put those in a different color. The favorite part that I have of that exercise is 2 weeks later, or if you're doing your bank statement, how much of those wants are still wants versus what of that wants was actually a waste. Because the reality is that we're living in such a, and I hate to say it this way because it sounds so like, so dramatic, but we're living in such a predatory retail environment where, especially with AI getting as incredibly good as it is it is so easy for money to leave our accounts. Like, it's so easy for money to leave our accounts. And I'm a very big fan, right? I mean, listen, you look at something and it follows you along for the next 3 weeks until you're like, I don't want to see you anymore. I've already bought you, or I don't want to buy you anymore. Or like, let me just click. Because when you think about consumer behavior, right? And we're all consumers, is when we think about consumer behavior, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you had so many steps from seeing an object to purchasing it. Like you had to get your wallet out, you had to enter your credit card information, and you had to, do many, many steps from to complete that purchase. And now everything is one click. So when you think about how predatory like shopping experiences are, right, and following you around, to one click, to how increasingly expensive things are, plus with the interest rates being so much higher, money is draining our accounts much quicker than it did in years before. And so really being intentional with what it is that I need, right? And making sure that you have the basis covered, that you have enough income, that your expenses are 100% covered. And then really looking at, from the things that you want, what is it that you actually want? And eliminating the wastes at the end of the month. Because the reality is every single time I've done this exercise with anybody else, I guarantee you're finding a couple of $100 a month. And I'm serious, easy, a couple of $100 a month on things that are just literally like draining away. And so then we start to look at, okay, I know I got the things that I need covered, right? Which is at the end of the day, when we look at like, what do people want in financial security? It's to not worry about, can I pay rent at the end of the month? It's to not worry about, can I buy groceries at the end of the day? Do I have to worry about if the gas price goes up, right? So if we're focusing on getting those needs covered, you're good. And then like, I'm never going to be someone who tells you to give up your Starbucks. If that brings you joy, enjoy your Starbucks. But like, stop clicking, guilty here. Like stop clicking, on the TikTok shop, because some influencer said I had to have it. And I'm like, oh yes, I do need another hair bonnet. Thank you. And then, 2 months later, it's just one more thing that's being donated to Goodwill. It's be intentional with what your money is doing for you and find the waste and then repurpose that waste, because we can always make more money in this industry. We have to learn how to keep more of what we have and then, reinvest it and really be intentional with what we're doing with it.
Yeah. Anna, what's your guilty pleasure? Sorry. Is Starbucks your guilty pleasure?
Yeah. Oh, I have my it's not even guilty pleasure because I have a really, really good coffee machine at home. So like I spent on that. So daily I don't have Starbucks. My guilty pleasure is I am a foodie. I'm a foodie, right? So like, so I'll buy really nice food and then I travel a ton for work. So I actually don't have time to cook it a lot of times. So that if I have to think of anything that is like a guilty pleasure that yes, I love it, I can indulge in it, but it's also probably the biggest source of waste for my budget is being at the grocery store or Instacart and being like, yes, I need that. Yes, I need that. And then at the end of the week, I haven't properly prepared it or I haven't been home to make it. And so then it goes into the trash. And that literally is a talking to that I'm getting every single week myself. That is it.
Victoria, what is your guilty pleasure before you give us your thoughts and feedback?
My guilty pleasure. I mean, probably, I don't know if it's like a guilty pleasure. I don't feel guilty for it and I don't get any pleasure from it. But something that I waste so much money on is all the stuff for my kids' school. It's not, and I don't mean like books and notebooks and papers and pens. I mean, it's costume day, it's dress up day. Can you bring one of these in? And it just like Jesus, it's for free school. It's very expensive. It's very expensive. And the fees and now we need one of these and can you donate one of those? And it's very expensive. That brings me quickly.
All of us moms can relate to that for sure. Totally makes sense. But yeah, what are your thoughts on a budget? Like what advice would you give? What have you done in the past?
So speaking from someone who opened up a beauty business almost by accident, I was looking for a job, not to own a business. When I realized that I actually owned a business, which by the way, if you're listening to this and you feel imposter syndrome around that phrase of being a business owner and you feel like, no, I'm not a real business, it's just me. I used to say that exact phrase all the time. You are a real business because at the end of the year, they want real taxes from you. You are a real business. So you have to operate like one. I hadn't even separated my business finances from my personal finances. So if all your money is going in and out of one account, you're in trouble. So whenever I start coaching with a beauty business, the first thing I tell them is that they have to open up a business bank account with their EIN and then get their DUNS number, which we can talk about later. But so you need your EIN, you need to go and open up your business bank account and you need to separate it. And by budgeting, I don't go line item with them. I generally treat them as adults. You can figure that out on your own and you can prioritize things on your own. Plus, everybody's priorities are a little bit different. Mine are certainly different than lots of people's. But in general, as a rule of thumb, I'll say for every dollar you make, 40% should go into your business account for business expenses, meaning things that you have to buy for the business, things that you have to pay for the business, and continuing education, that kind of thing. 25% should be allotted to anybody who works for you for payroll. And if you're not making enough to cover that, maybe let's look at how many people we've got on the payroll. 20% should go to you as the business owner because you have to earn a living. So many people, when they make that split, when they hire someone, think there are two people in that split. Especially on the other end, not the business owner's end, the service provider renting the chair thinks that's unfair. She's earning so much off of everything that I'm making. But there are three people in that agreement because we have to pay you, we have to pay the business, and the business owner has to get paid. If you don't think that she's worth her salt, then you can go and do it yourself. But she's paying state fees, federal fees, local fees, marketing expenses, overhead, and everything else. So these percentages are important. And then that last 15% should be dedicated strictly to the overhead you have every single month so that you're not worried on the 30th that rent was due tomorrow. So I get really serious about categorizing those things and splitting it up in a way that you can't screw it up. It's in a different business account. It's not in your account, so you can't mess it up. You can't. I used to do this thing called double spending, which apparently isn't real, but in my brain it made sense, where I would make $200 today And so I would spend it on a bill. And then that $200 would actually hit my account from Vagaro 24 hours later. And then I would spend it.
Okay, we have a new phrase, double spending.
I double spent it.
Sorry, I love it. Yeah, I love that.
I think just to tag on to something. Oh, sorry. No, just to tag on to something that Victoria said, and I love that you called it out. One of the things that, anytime you go to any sort of financial class or anything else, there's always the saying of like, pay yourself first. And that's so hard to do when you're a business, especially a small business owner, right? Because oftentimes people are literally just floating themselves from one paycheck to the other, and it's money in and it's money out. And so I think, the importance of categorizing yourself so that it is set up as you are having to have a livable wage from that business. So you're not just, you're not a nonprofit, you're not a charity, you're not a, you don't have a very expensive job that you're actually paying to work. It's how do you set that up so that at the end of the day, you're also taken care of, and then everyone else is paid with you included.
Yeah.
Victoria, I'm curious, how often do you look at like reporting? So like reporting reports on like how you're doing, and how does that play a part into your planning and your budgeting?
I only ever want to look at numbers if I need to. So if we are about to invest in something, develop a new product, if we're looking at someone who wants to basically rent our licensing then I'll look at numbers and try and make sure that things make sense. But in general, I just defer to my CPA constantly. Bridget is my best friend in my pocket. Hey girl, not Bridget the app that pays you before payday. Bridget Terrio, my CPA, just so we're clear.
Awesome. So there is the kind of dreaded thing in this industry, especially with hairdressers. I don't know if it's still the same with makeup artists as well, and just kind of some of the other beauty businesses, but there's seasonalities. And so what advice would you give our attendees on how to manage through seasonality, how to plan for that? Because even though it's coming, you still may not be necessarily prepared for it. So like, how do you get prepared for it?
You got to live like a squirrel.
Yeah.
You got to live like a squirrel. While the nuts are on the tree, go and grab them, and then you got to put them away in different little cups, right? Like you got to just be a little. So I have my for the winter when things are slow cup, and then I have my for the summer when we want a party cup. And you have to make sure that they're earning you money. If you put money away into a savings account that gets you no return on your savings, you're losing money because you have to adjust for inflation. Every day that dollar is weaker. So that's not going to help you out long term. You need to figure out where to put them where it's almost a no-brainer, which is what they call diversifying your portfolio. Now, I don't know anything about that. Okay, I'm not a investment genius, but so I always hire my weaknesses. So I hired someone who's really good at that, and he invests for me. My friend Carrie does all of that for me. I mean, my kids even get paid. They work in my business. They come and vacuum and they unpack stuff and they do inventory. They're 5 and 7. And Carrie makes sure that they get paid something like $200 a month into a savings account that accrues interest over their lifetime. Hopefully they don't touch it till they're ready to retire, and they'll retire millionaires just for shooting out of me. But in general, I have my own versions of that. I have an IRA, and I have a savings account, and I have a savings account for the business that we call the tax account, so that at the end of the year, I've actually made money on the money I set aside to pay for that stuff. So just having these little pockets, having these little pockets where you're saving money all throughout the year, so that when it is slow, you have different areas you can pull from.
Oh my gosh, that diversification, I think
big word.
Is really, you just dropped a lot of nuggets, I think, for people. But I think a lot of business owners are nervous, like they're a little scared to kind of take that leap. So where did you start, I guess, in that, and figuring out how to diversify to where you felt comfortable with doing it?
Honestly, my investment manager is you don't want to say anything's no risk, but your first meeting with him is no risk. So I actually found him on TikTok, believe it or not. I am that crazy. But it was no risk, right? So I just meet with him, and he asked me a million really personal questions. And then he came back to me and my husband with like a plan of what he would do if he were us. And as we went through it, it was, you know, like we were financially in great shape, actually. So he takes you through these 5 different levels of like, pay off your debt first, do this next, do whatever. And he kind of gave me the plan. So I had a little bit of a cheat code there. And then I did do a background check on him and checked out. You know, he comes from a financier. That's what his dad did too. So I know that I'm not being scammed because I met him on TikTok. But I like that I hired someone who knew what they were doing, and they took me through baby steps. So it didn't seem as scary. It was no risk up front. There's no obligation to buy anything or to do anything. He's a what do they call that? A fiduciary.
Yep.
Yeah. So he has to pledge his allegiance to me pretty much that he won't scam me and that he's not going to sell me anything so that it's to his benefit. It has to be to my benefit. And he walked me through it like coaxing an injured deer out of the woods. Right over here, come this way. He said, first, we're going to make sure that all the credit cards are paid off and there's no what's called bad debt, high interest loans, high interest credit cards. We didn't have that. Great. Now we're going to have 6 months of savings. That was step number 2. That's pretty easy to do. Just sock it away in your little squirrels, right? Or Ally calls them buckets. And then we started actually looking at where we were going to put money that would make us money. So first we did life insurance policies that earn you money over the course of time. And then we got into investment account. Well, we did an IRA and then we got into investment accounts. So it was very incremental. It wasn't all at once. And it started with something really small. Aggressively pay off any debt that you have. Great. Aggressively put away money that can float you for 6 months. That's not scary because I can always take it back if I need it. And I did, because I wound up buying commercial real estate. So I loaned myself the money for the down payment, and then I just let the business pay it back.
Fantastic. Wow, you are your own lender. Amazing.
It's so good.
Anna, what are your thoughts?
I have many thoughts. Congratulations on finding like such a badass fiduciary. That's really important. You. It is, right? So
he's cute too.
You what?
He's cute too.
He's cute too. Listen, that always helps, right? But here's the deal, though, right? I think it is being an educated advocate for yourself. That's kind of the first step, because I think, you know, if we look at from a personal responsibility, right? You took the first step of seeking him out, of being able to be vulnerable enough to even know that, like, I need help, I need to become more educated, or to seek help in how to build the foundation. I think when we look at the fundamentals, and I teach this quite often, is you don't need to know every single thing in finance. What we need to know about to protect ourselves, and you actually called them out in through your story, is there's 4 key areas that you want to make sure you're like solid in. The first one is protection. And that you spoke about insurance. Like we are in an industry where our ability to make an income is physically dependent on our physical ability. And so if something happens to you, like, do you know what your insurance policy covers? I broke my ankle really badly last year and literally could not put any weight on my foot for 3 months. If I was behind the chair, if I was a service professional and I didn't have either work for a company who covered me or had insurance to be able to float me through that time, guess what? I would have been in massive debt. I would have gone through all of my savings. I would have maybe had to tap into investments. And so we see that so much. So understanding, insurance and what that insurance can do for you and how to navigate that, what questions to ask. Very, very important. To your point, 6 months of having an emergency fund. Like if you are in a dual income household, the recommended amount is 6 months. If you're a single income household, that recommended amount is actually 12 months, right? So when we think about how do we stash away that money, to the point of, the conversation earlier, it's really important for us to start to build that. And then navigating debt. The thing is that once we start to understand how when we invest money, it compounds for us. So our money makes money. But what's even trickier is that when we start to understand how money compounds against us, so how our debt actually earns debt, which is why like paying off debt feels like walking on quicksand, and how predatory that process is, and looking at things like, different payoff options, looking at even navigating something as easy as like the snowball method to be able to pay off our debt quickly so that we can not make the credit card companies billions of dollars every single year. And then ultimately understanding like, what are some of the investments that we can make that then start to make money for us? One of the simplest ways, just for anybody listening, where they're like, okay, well, I don't know anything. Like, how do I start? Where do I even start to put my money so it's working, even to keep up with the cost of inflation? To Victoria's point, is open a high yield savings account. honestly, if you have your emergency savings, if you have anything that you need easy access to, where you're like, I don't know where to invest, high yield savings account. Look at, one of the resources that I use all the time. It's called nerdwallet.com, not sponsored. They just do a really good job. Is look into high yield savings accounts. And they vary state by state. And so you can get something, like just shy of 5% on an account that you can easily pull money in and out of, right? That you don't have a lot of penalties or any penalties if you pull it out. And then get familiar with things like Acorns, with things like Robinhood, where if you don't have access to a financial advisor, if that's not on your to-do list right now, it's very easy to start to invest into something like the S&P 500 or something to continue to build wealth. Even if you're doing, listen, time is on your side when it comes to investing. And I love that you're doing this for your children. Like the sooner you start, the more time you have that money to grow. And so start to automate even things that come out of your bank account that are automatically invested for you in things like Acorns. I'm a huge fan of theirs. Again, not sponsored, but I just think those seeds that you plant along the way that you're not having to look at on a daily basis will actually grow into massively large amounts for you in the course of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, without you having to make a whole lot of effort. But it's important to know where to keep that money so that you can start to have those conversations. And Victoria, the fact that you lent money to yourself is like the most badass thing I've heard all week. So it's
right.
Great.
I own $500,000 in commercial real estate because I loaned myself $60,000. Look at me go.
Yeah, incredible.
Congratulations. Yeah.
I never felt like more of a badass than the day that I bought a building. I never thought that could happen ever. And if I could do it, the stripper who barely passed college, I paid someone to pass Math 101 for me. You can do it. I promise you can do it.
Oh, I just got goosebumps. I love it so much. I love it so much.
Awesome. And unfortunately, we're running out of time. So one thing before we go, it's actually a two-part question for you guys. And the first part of it is, what would you say to our female entrepreneurs out there that are still operating off just a spreadsheet, that haven't digitized, and kind of move forward with their finances? And then also tell us, what you have going on, how people can keep in touch with you, how they can engage with you, any projects you have that you want to share. Victoria, do you want to kick us off with that and before we wrap up? Yeah.
I think when you think of organizing your finances online, tracking your finances online, making it digital, you think of the word QuickBooks, also not sponsored. There's a reason that you think of QuickBooks. First of all, because of the immutable laws of marketing, it's the first one because it's the first one, but also it's just the easiest. So QuickBooks Online is super, super easy. It actually learns from me every time I categorize something. If it didn't know automatically what it was, it will remember that and recategorize it that way next month. My CPA can log right into it and reconcile accounts and pull from it. As a trade school, I have to get audited every year. I just finished in September. So it's very important that things are always where they need to be. And QuickBooks Online has made this super, super, super easy for me and very easy for her too. So I'm not answering 1,000 emails. I'm not answering 1,000 phone calls. I just have an assistant log things once or twice a month, go and categorize the things that it didn't automatically categorize, and we're done. Where you can find me later is, if you want to find me on Instagram, I am victoria.glam, Victoria period GLAM. And if you want to work together, if you're looking for a business coach, one-on-one coaching is thousands of dollars. And if you're not making thousands of dollars a month, I don't recommend it. But I do have an online course that's only a couple $100, and you can find that at victoriaglam.com/consulting. I've actually condensed everything that I would teach a newbie into that course because I want to stop teaching newbies. I want to focus on big picture projects for my one-on-ones because they take so much time to set aside an hour every week and have a Zoom call and everything else. So why should you pay thousands for it? Give me a couple $100 and I'll give you everything I got.
Love that.
Love it. We'll drop all in the chat so that everyone can connect with you. Thank you, Victoria, so much for all the valuable insights. Anna, what are your thoughts on moving from a spreadsheet to digitizing, and then what do you have going on?
I think face the beast, take a day to do it, and then you will forever be grateful that you did. The reality is that we hold off so much about dreading that one thing you have to do, right? That like it'll take you, maybe less than 4 hours if you're like really committed, or like maybe 6 hours to get it done. But guess what? Once it's done, you don't have to worry about it again. But the reality is that, years are flying by the way that weeks used to. So if you think about when you first wanted to do it, chances are you've been thinking about it for the last 4 or 5 years. And here we are today. And unless you actually schedule the day to do it, it's going to be another 3 years later and you're going to be kicking yourself. So look at where you are, look at, okay, when this is the due date that I have to do this by, protect that time, get it done, and then you'll be done. And then it's going to be working for you. And how much it will make your life easier, you will forever be grateful to yourself for actually taking the time to do it. But schedule it and get it done. And don't procrastinate, because again, it's going to be another year and you're still going to be thinking about, oh, I wish I would have done that back then. Make your life easier. Just get it done. I think, where you can find me is, I'll link you to Instagram as well, Manukyan. I've got a couple of exciting things happening. So I do a couple of industry finance columns. So you can definitely tune in to continue to learn just to learn the fundamentals of finance and figure out what is it that you need to do? How do you become your best educated advocate for making better financial decisions? I also have a course launching next year. You can download my free ebook that's available on the Beautiful Wealth /get started, or follow me on Instagram and I'll share all the things there. But, continue to learn, continue to advocate for yourself. I think if you look at, if 16-year-old Victoria or 16-year-old Anna, had a vision for where we were today, I don't think we would have ever wound up. I don't think we would have ever even been able to see what was possible, right? And it's one step after another. Sometimes they're difficult, sometimes they're easy, but the reality is that every step you take, no matter how hard, gets you to where you want to be. And don't ever stop yourself. Don't ever talk yourself out of taking that step forward, because it can lead you to really beautiful places.
Agreed.
Oh, wow.
Agreed.
I love that. I feel like we could go a whole nother hour. I just met you two today and I'm just so inspired. Thank you so much for taking the time. For everyone that's joined us, we have some amazing resources. We're going to share all the links to these two powerhouse, their social medias, and any links to their sites and newsletters and things like that they have going on, so you have direct access. We have also, Vagaro, seen so much success with businesses that have embraced our offerings like payroll services, Vagaro Capital, dashboards and reporting, rent collection, just so much. But this really has been amazing. And I want to thank both of our KNOWN boss babes for joining us and for their insight. And just in case you didn't know, KNOWN is a professional association. We're here to empower women professionals and entrepreneurs. And then to join the association, please check out the link in the chat to learn more. Thanks again, ladies. Really appreciate it. I hope to keep in touch with you both and have you both back again. And have a good day.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.